just ignore that. And then I did make notes.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Accommodations in Tax Advisory Committee meeting for Wednesday, July 14, 2021. And acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. First order of business is approval of previous meetings minutes. Do I have a motion on that?
Motion to approve.
The second,
Second.
any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against? Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, next item of business is review of the financial statements, and Debbie Suggs is going to lead that discussion.
Are the preliminary June 30, 2021 statement. So this would be the city's fiscal year end is June 30. So this is a full year, but it is preliminary. There are transactions that will happen in July and August, late invoices and such that we will accrue back. So there will be a final presentation of these numbers. The biggest item that is not included is the fourth quarter payment from the state. So I would expect that payment to be from $700,000 to $800,000. And of course, there would be the tourism related portion, the general fund portion, and the tourism promotion portion that we would send to the CVB. So I'll note that as we go through the statements. From a balance sheet perspective, cash is about 1.2 million. And I added the June 30, 2020 column just for comparative purposes. So given that we still have the fourth quarter payment to come, we are comparing favorably to last year this time. Minimal accounts payable, fund balance. The preliminary fund balance is about 1.2 million. Next page is revenues, and you can see that here is where the June quarterly payment from the state will eventually show up. Again, I expect it to be between $700,000 and $800,000. The city has had a very good year in accommodations. So while this is state accommodations, we get municipal accommodations monthly via Charleston County. So we get a more up-to-date picture of activity from the municipal side. And it is running significantly above the budget, which was very conservative because we didn't know what was going to happen with COVID. And it's also running quite a bit higher than FY19, the pre-COVID numbers.
Now, on the county part of it, didn't they suspend those payments to the municipalities during COVID?
So there are actually two revenue streams that come via Charleston County. One is that the county collects the city's implemented 1% municipal accommodations tax and the 1% beach preservation fee. Those were instituted by the city, and Charleston County just collects them for us. So there was no disruption in that revenue stream. What you're referring to is the county passes through, or typically passes through to the city, even though they are not required to by law, about 20% of their accommodations taxes collected on Isle of Palms rentals. That is what got suspended. But the information that we've received from the county indicates that they've had just as good a year accommodations wise as the city has, and that they do expect to be able to reinstate that for FY21 as well as FY22. We haven't seen the money yet, so we're not counting on it until we do, but all indications are that at least some of the money that we expected to come in or would have expected to come in, we will receive.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to expenditures. Again, keep in mind as we're looking at actual versus budget that we still have likely some expenses still to come. Public restroom operations, we're at 76,000 compared to a budget of 107. The year-to-date trash pickup, that there was no disruption in that service. So you can see that we've about spent to budget on that. Breach Inlet, water. We did purchase 80 yellow trash barrels. Those are the ones you see around the island. Typically, they have a palm tree painted on them. Website maintenance. And I think we've discussed this, but next year, although the state ATAX fund has typically supported the city's internet presence ever since we first got a website, since this is so integral now to city operations, this will be moved to the general fund going forward. T-shirt promo, that has started back. We suspended that promotion during COVID, since for a lot of that time, City Hall was closed to the public, but now it is going again. So folks are coming upstairs and getting T-shirts. Next page, Charleston CVB contributions. Again, the fourth quarter's is not yet included, but it will be, I expect, $200,000 to $300,000. Next is the transfer to the Isle of Palms Marina Fund for 75% of the bond debt service. So the budget anticipated a 3.2 million bond issue at a 4% rate. 75% of that is the 216,450. What we actually ended up with, due to increases in costs and such, was a $4.3 million issue, but at an interest rate of only 2.16. So the difference, the 33,320 difference, is just the fallout of borrowing more money, even though it was at a lower rate. So this is something that I would look to the committee to approve that overage. I went back and looked at the minutes from a previous meeting when I had requested something similar for a Music in the Park event. Is this room coming up to anybody's memory? And the committee at that time chose not to vote because it was not on the agenda. And I don't know if that's because the Music in the Park event was not included in the budget at all, or if it was just the overage the committee wanted separately listed on the agenda. This overage here is not listed on the agenda, but the expense was included in the budget. So I will just look to you. If y'all want to defer a vote, we can put it on the agenda for the next meeting. But it is an expense that was budgeted. It's not unheard of for things to go over budget. So if I was asked, I would say it doesn't necessitate a separate agenda mention, but of course, y'all can choose.
Okay, again, you're asking whether we want to put it on the agenda and then vote concerning it next meeting?
Well, I would entertain a vote now. But if the committee is uncomfortable with that, we can put it on the agenda next time.
I would recommend that you list it specifically listed on the agenda for next time and take action, just so that folks have proper notice about an action.
Also, who will describe the event to us? So will we get any kind of a description or some, or is it like the T-shirt promotion where it's just a line item in the budget and we just consider it on that basis?
What you would be considering is the overage in the budgeted amount for the bond that issue for the marina, not a particular event.
No, I'm referring to the music in the park.
That was an
That was
example
previous.
of
Oh, just an
similar-
example.
yes.
Oh, I thought you were adding it to the future. Oh, okay.
No, it was just an example of how we've treated in the past when we've had an overage in an event.
Okay, yeah, as far as the bond cost, I'm good with voting on that now.
I'm going to follow the lead of our city administrator and move to defer so we can have a full discussion.
Typically, action items are listed very specifically on an agenda.
All right, well, let's do that, and we intend to meet in August, so we can discuss it then.
Okay.
And vote on it then.
Perfect.
Do you need any kind of a motion on
No,
that?
sir. I'll just make a note so that we may remember to add it to the draft agenda for you to consider next.
And put the music in the park on there too. Okay, so moving on. 4th of July fireworks, no expense. Because those were canceled again for July 2021. It is included in the budget for July 2022, although no action has been taken by city council on that. The sponsorship of the Isle of Palms Connector Run and Walk for the Child, that's an Exchange Club event that was included in the FY21 budget. That payment was made. Next page, there's the Music in the Park event that we were talking about. Desiree's going to add it to the agenda for next time. Easter egg hunt we talked about last meeting. Funding the salaries and fringes for one of 27 police officers and all beach service officers. The 138,998 represents the police officer salary and the beach service officer salary through, I think, the end of May. So there will be a June adjustment for June expense. Body armor, I believe there have been no new expenses since our last meeting. Next page, we did purchase a Dodge Durango patrol vehicle in the police department. The digital license plate reader for parking enforcement was budgeted, but it has not been purchased. It's rebudgeted for next year. In both the police and the fire departments, there's expenses associated with repairs to the public safety building, but those are under budget and that project is complete. State accommodations tax funded the annual lease payment, and we call it a lease. It's a municipal lease. There is no buyout provision at the end. And the city owns the equipment at the end. It's a financing mechanism that we use. So the ATAX committee or the ATAX fund covers the payment on the 75-foot ladder truck. The budgeted amount for refurbishment of the 95-foot ladder truck, which has been completed. There was a personal watercraft and on the next page, an ATV budgeted in the fire department. They would like to have that equipment, but it was not available for them to purchase, just as you've been hearing the problems with supply. So those will be FY22 purchases. Salaries and fringes for 3 of 34 fire personnel. That transfer has been made. And this is just a transfer from the state ATAX fund to the general fund where those salary and fringe expenses are recorded. And then 1/3 of the cost to replace the public works flatbed truck. Under miscellaneous, there's the $10,000 2021 Turtle Trek sponsorship that the committee approved. And that's all so far on expenditures. Are there any questions? Okay.
You can go over any of this information or
Oh,
this is
yeah.
just that?
You want me to just roll right on into the budget?
Do you want to vote on approval of the budget right now?
The committee may consider a motion. There can be some discussion. Debbie will go through the items and then you can vote on that motion.
So tell me what you want to do.
So under old business, we have the approval of the
Right.
FY22 budget.
Right.
This is mostly procedural. The budget has already been approved by city council. I think that between some of the meetings that were canceled and had to be rescheduled, it was a miss on our part to include it on the agenda for approval. So we're bringing it before you all. For some
That's what I
discussion.
thought. That's why I asked, do I have a motion to approve the budget?
I make a motion, we approve.
Second,
Second.
any discussion?
So we can get into the discussion now and then you can entertain and vote.
Okay.
I have some discussion if I can. I feel sort of uncomfortable. We're being given a budget for millions of dollars. We're in no way involved in the process. I don't want to, I'm respectful of everything you've done and I'm very appreciative. But we're not involved in the process and I don't want to be a rubber stamp and I have to wonder, I'm asking, I'd like some input, why we should vote in favor of something or against something that we know next to nothing about. Now, I'm mindful, as I'm sure y'all are, about what happened in a somewhat similar situation in Palm Beach, Florida. And I don't want you to be facing any criticism. I don't want my colleagues here to be face criticism. We're simply an advisory committee. The deal's done, so to speak. The ship has sailed, since using a term that we use on the beach. What's the utility in us voting when it's already done? If you were to ask me, do we appreciate what you've done? We acknowledge that there was a lot of hard work, but you have done your job. Ways and Means Committee looked at it, councils looked at it. Why shouldn't we just accept it as information? Why do we need to vote on something and in effect, somebody's used the word once before, a rubber stamp? Why don't we just say thank you? Why do we vote?
So procedurally and historically, the committee has made a recommendation before full council, before the ratification of the budget. We just, for transparency purposes, we want to give you all an opportunity to evaluate and discuss it. I mean, it was a mistake on our end not to include it before city council voted on it. Certainly not required to have a vote if that's not what the committee is comfortable with. I know that the TER committee does.
Yeah, that's where I was.
Isn't it a statutory type of requirement based on, like you say, Turk, that the ATAX committee needs to weigh in on approval of a budget?
Well, I don't know if it's approval of a budget, but approval of expenditures of accommodations tax money. So
Which
this
is what
is
we-
in fact, could be looked at as a request for funding. And so I think we are going to have, the committee is going to have to vote yes or no. It can vote no.
Right. I guess my point is if you write a report every year to
Mhm.
Turk, and if in the report it says that the ATAX committee voted against the budget, I would think there's some explanation that.
Well, I don't know that I'm trying to envision the report that I send. I don't believe it's called a budget. I mean, it's
Okay,
just
just
expenditures of the
which is the same,
funds.
which is what we've just been just gone through.
Right. And the committee is responsible for approving or disapproving expenditures of the funds.
Right.
So, and certainly whatever, if there are items included in the budget that the committee doesn't agree with, or items that the committee would like to see in the budget that's not there, those will be documented in the minutes and communicated to city council. The budget is just a plan. It's not the expenditure of the funds. That's still to come.
Okay. Well, I think to Doug's point, it's after the fact, and we discussed the expenditures, and I don't see any point in not voting on it right now, as far as either accepting or not accepting the detail of the expenditures.
Right. And this is different from what we just went through, which are things that have happened. This is the plan for next year.
I'm confused. Are we being asked to approve the plan for next year? Or are we being asked to approve what's already been approved in the budget? That's city council.
Well, the budget is the plan for next year. So this is this is what, at this point, we expect to fund with state ATAX money. So it is, you could look at it as a request for funding, just like if, when the turtle team came, or when the VFW came, it's a request and y'all can approve it or disapprove it.
I do feel uncomfortable being asked to vote on something that we didn't participate in and has already been approved, even though it's a plan. And as a plan, I understand you're saying it can be altered.
Mm-hmm.
How would that alteration happen?
Well, you don't even have, there are, if it was significant, we could amend the budget.
So we're asked to approve a plan that we don't participate in until after the fact.
Again, this is unusual usually we would try to present this to the committee prior to ratification by city council. It's an oversight that we didn't do that. But nevertheless, this is a request for funding, and the committee needs, in my opinion, the committee needs to give it an up or down vote. Y'all can vote against it, and we'll document that. Again, in your advisory capacity, that's what you would be doing. We would.
But you're asking for a yay or nay vote on this document, correct?
No, not this document, this document.
Okay, but are we going to discuss this?
Yeah.
So
That's what we're going to do right now,
okay,
is go through
then
this.
Can we proceed with that? Then?
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
What is the harm if we just deferred? Is the city going to be put in a real bad situation if we defer and don't vote now? We kind of we get these documents a short time before the meeting, and we really, I have to say, I haven't had time to fully appreciate or understand it, and this is in my wheelhouse.
Mhm.
Looking at these things, is it going to put you in a bad position if we sort of kick the can down the road to the next meeting? Is it going to hurt you if we wait?
No, I mean, I think that my suggestion would be if folks are uncomfortable about taking a vote on it today, we can certainly have that discussion again in August. We can go through it now with both of us, and we can answer questions, explain to you what you all would be voting on. That's why it's on the agenda for
Okay.
discussion, and certainly it's up to the committee to take a vote after the discussion, or if you all want to defer until August to take an action.
I'm not sure I'd be doing you a service. I'm making a statement. I'll ask for feedback. What you think. I'm not sure I would be meeting my fiduciary duty or doing you a service if I really haven't digested all the information. What do you think?
That's completely fine. Our suggestion is that we can discuss it while we're here together now. If you have any questions after the fact, between now and the next meeting, we can certainly entertain those and have more discussion next time so that everyone has enough time to digest it, understand it, have an opportunity to ask questions before voting.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Thanks.
Okay, y'all ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
Okay. So we'll start with revenues. And the way this, I know there are a lot of numbers on this page, but the way it's organized is you have actual, starting from the left, actual figures from FY17 to FY20. Those would be audited numbers. Then the original FY21 budget, where we were at 12/31/20. The 12 months ending December 2020, a forecast for FY21, and then a budget for FY22, and then forecast for FY23 through FY26. But what we'll focus on is the light green column budget FY22. And the numbers are on one page, and then the notes associated with those numbers would be on the second page. So starting with revenues, accommodations tax related and promotion are listed separately. The budget was based on the last 12 months actual plus a provision for what we thought the new Wild Dunes Hotel might add. So you can see just on that top line, $1,463,000 is the budget. We were forecasting, and this was probably prior to the March payment, of an annual amount of 1.354 for FY21. We knew that was at least partially impacted a little bit by COVID. So we're getting back to what we think of as pre-COVID numbers plus a provision for the growth that we've seen in the new Wild Dunes Hotel. The tourism promotion piece acts the same way. It's just a percentage of the total. Interest income, that's just based on kind of 12-month recent actual. And then we get into expenditures. Most of these are expenditures that are typically funded with ATAX money and would have been reviewed in the actual June numbers that we just talked about. For instance, the water and sewer would be the breach inlet irrigation at the breach inlet sign, non-capital tools and equipment. That is a provision to add, replace, or maintain benches and such at the Carmen R. Bunch and Leola Hanbury Parks. Y'all know where those are. Leola's Park is right here next to the connector, and then Carmen's is on the other side of what used to be the dry cleaners. Programs and sponsorships, that $85,000 is made up of a $50,000 placeholder for applications that come before the committee. We've talked about that before. It's just kind of a guesstimate of what y'all might expect to receive in any one year, and just gives you the funds available within the budget to make those awards. And then the additional $35,000 is costs associated with a fireworks show that is yet to be determined whether or not that will happen for FY22. But there's a provision in the budget in case it does. Miscellaneous is just miscellaneous to capture any little small thing that might come up. Tourism promotion expense, this would include the payment to the CVB. So if you take that $694.74, if y'all are following me, and up above the tourism promo revenue piece is the 675. So the 690 includes the 675 plus a provision for T-shirts that the city might purchase for the promo. Any questions so far?
I have a question. The 85,000 under the grants, does that mean there's actually 85,000 allowed, or is it still going to be 50?
Well, the 85,000 programs and sponsorships is the line item. The 50,000 is again a placeholder just to acknowledge that there will be likely will be applications made to the committee during the year that you might want to fund. So that's where the budget for that would be. And then the 35 is for a fireworks show that may or may not happen. Okay, going on to police. Non-capital tools and equipment. Historically, state ATAX has been used to fund purchases of body armor for the police department. So that is just the estimate of what the need will be in FY22. Capital outlay under the police department, $149,000 is made up of 2 patrol SUVs for $82,000, a license plate reader for parking enforcement for $50,000, and 1 low-speed vehicle for $17,000. Going on to fire department, here's where the debt service, we talked about it. It's been in place in FY21. We would continue it in FY22. The debt service associated with the 75-foot ladder truck. Capital outlay in the fire department is made up of 1 replacement pickup truck for $42,000, a utility vehicle with an ambulatory package for $25,000, and 1/3 of the replacement of all the SCBA apparatus. Those are the tanks the firemen wear when they go into a fire for $97,000. Those have a long useful life, and we've actually been setting aside money for several years now to fund those. Okay, moving on. Public Works. There's 7,500 in the miscellaneous line. That's the annual provision for trash cans, the yellow barrel. And then capital outlay is $15,000. That is the replacement of a Z-Track mower, which personnel use to maintain rights of way typically. Under the recreation department, capital outlay $10,000. That is an annual provision for replacement or repair of equipment or scoreboards if needed. And then the special activities under the rec department is made up of 3 events: the connector run, the Easter egg hunt, and a music event. That's the music event that takes place on rec grounds. Okay, Front Beach restrooms. Again, these are typical expenses associated with utilities and cleaning. And the attendant, well, no, not the attendant, because that's in the transfers. The contracted services number there of 125, 40,000 for the year-round cleaning and maintenance. And 85,000 for the trash pickup on the street and along the beach. You know, y'all have seen the truck that goes down on the beach. That's budgeted here. And then the capital outlay of $70,000 in that front beach and front beach restroom department is to repair approximately 4,500 linear feet of sidewalk along Ocean Boulevard between 10th and 14th. That's a project that we want to split up over multiple years. Okay, any questions there?
Is the sidewalk, is that on repair, is that on us, the Alabama, or is that on DOT?
The city owns the
The city
portion of
owns it.
Ocean Boulevard between 10th and 14th, so that would be the area that we would be replacing sidewalks
So
on.
everything on waterway is on us for the multi-use path?
That's a separate location.
Okay,
This is for Ocean
I
Boulevard.
understand.
But yes, Waterway Boulevard, that path, even though it's on SCDOT right of way, the city constructed that path using county money, county grant funds, and the city accepted maintenance responsibility in perpetuity at that point.
So it's all on us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can we use ATAX money for that?
The
Can
city-
are we allowed to use ATAX money for the repair of the multi-use path on waterway?
I would say, yes, it would be, we would have to argue that it's used by not only residents, but also folks that are visiting.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
to use for that.
And my question is about the mower for the maintenance of the right of way. Is that for all right of ways in the city?
That is for, yes, for the right of way and also beach access paths. We forgot to include that in the notes, but that's also used to maintain beach access paths.
And that also is used to maintain the right of way on Palm Boulevard between 21st and 41st.
Correct. All
And
rights of way.
is the state providing any money to do that?
No,
Okay, the only thing left is to talk about is the transfers. This would be transfers out of state ATAX into either the general fund or the marina. So it includes money for firefighters, and I think it's 3. The 1 to 3 means in different years, we use a different level, but I believe for FY22, it's 3. 1 police officer. 75% of the annual debt service on the marina dock bond, which we talked about earlier, and $50,000 annually for marina maintenance. That's just a provision for maintenance, not anything specific. FY22 also includes 50% or $75,000 for fire department personnel restructuring. And then the rest of the note talks about forecast years.
What does personnel restructuring mean?
so earlier this year, city council voted to create 2 deputy positions in the fire department, which did not exist before. So we added some funds to allow us to make those changes and make changes to salary as those changes are.
Any other questions? I can tell Doug has a question.
I had one going back to our DMO. I'm very respectful of the work that they've done. Appreciative of the success they've had. But my question is maybe more of a legal one. I do understand the statute. I understand the 30%. What I'd like for you to address for me, so I'll understand as a new member. How does that, we have selected a DMO, but I don't see that we've ever complied with the procurement code. And just jumped out at me that we selected somebody without, and it's not even done as a sole source, which I think could be done, but But how are we in compliance with our own ordinance regarding the selection? And I've noticed that we don't have a contract. If I were buying a car, I have a contract, an insurance policy contract. If somebody's in the real estate business, if you're just buying a condo, you have a contract, and you have some metrics and you indicate what you expect in return. Now, I'm not criticizing our DMO when I'm asking this question, because I understand that we've got to give 30% to somebody, but it seems to me under the ordinance, there's a proper way to do it and not a proper way to do it. I'm trying to understand, and maybe you can help me explain how, and if you can point me to something in our ordinance that will make me feel more comfortable that we complied with the procurement code. Is there anything that you can give me?
What I will say is, we'd have to do some research about the time and the year when the city of Palm selected the CBB as the chosen agency to manage these funds. You're right. I think that this is a question for legal counsel, and they're not here today. So we can go back and ask for an opinion about your question with procurement.
Again, I'm not being critical of our DMO in that regard. I just want to make sure we're complying with the law. And it looks to me like I went back 12 years and I don't see a contract, and I don't see a sole source procurement. And maybe that, you're right, maybe that is that might not be a fair question for y'all, but you think maybe in the next meeting we could have that addressed? Or I can call, I don't mind calling the lawyer. I just want to feel more comfortable, because it just jumps out to me that as much criticism we've been getting, I want to make sure that everybody on this committee is protected, and our city council is protected, and our staff who we respect are protected, and we're not only doing what's right, but has the appearance of being right.
Well, I think that even predates Debbie, who's been here for almost 25 years, that the city has been working with the CBB. So we
Right.
have to go back to our files and look at the minutes and read the discussion at the time when city council selected the CBB as our DMO. We don't have that right now, but we can certainly try to get this information and answer your question by the next meeting.
Okay, that's what I did. I'd gone back to look at the background. I couldn't find out where it seemed like kind of like, well, this way we've always done it. And again, maybe the research will show something else. Thanks.
Are you saying that there's a possibility that a multi-year agreement was made? Otherwise, isn't it up for renewal every year? And isn't there an opportunity every year to ask for a contract and accountability from them?
I don't know what the city entered into those years ago. There is no contract, you're correct. There's no contract. And that's something that I think the committee and council wants to look at moving forward, so that both parties understand what the goal, and I believe the chair has included an item on the agenda for discussion on that regard. But in terms of the history of when the city first started working with the CBB, that certainly it's 25 years, happened 25 years, maybe more ago. And without doing that research, I wouldn't be able to answer that question.
Any further discussion on the budget for FY22? Is there any reason to delay a vote? Does anyone have a need to wait until August to vote on this?
I do. Would you vote now?
I'm proposing that we vote now, because I don't know what, if you have questions that need to be answered between now and the next meeting, that we can do that. Or if you don't have questions, I don't see the point in delaying it.
I make a motion that we defer the vote until the next meeting after we have more information.
That's it.
So there's already a motion on the floor to approve. The committee can take action on that motion or withdraw that motion from the floor from consideration. Mr. Nelson.
made the motion to approve Ms. Bell, seconded the motion, so if it is their desire to remove that, they can, but otherwise, there's an open motion. on
There's
the floor.
already an open motion. on the
So
floor.
you need to.
Amend it.
Act on
They
that.
think the second was Mulligan.
I'm sorry?
Ms. Spell's not on the committee anymore.
I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Mulligan.
Yes.
So you have to take action on that motion that's already on the floor or withdraw. Those who made the motion and seconded can withdraw that motion and consider a new motion.
We have further discussion. What do we expect to learn concerning the budget between now and the next meeting?
Well, most obvious thing was, we don't have a contract. We got $600,000 that, we're more or less, maybe, I think it's gonna be more next year. And doesn't appear that from my research, it doesn't appear that we complied with the procurement code. So I would like to feel more comfortable that we're in compliance with the law before I vote on something, because from everything that we have so far, it doesn't look like we are. I want us to be, and if we made a mistake, we'll make it right. But I don't want to vote on something where we don't know what we're dealing with.
Well,
That's my-
again, this is just my opinion. I view the line item specifically for the 30% promotion account as a placeholder more than anything else. Since you don't have a contract, you're not encumbered by that expense being targeted to that supplier. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but you're budgeting the 30% is just a calculation. It's nothing more than that. It doesn't say where you're going to buy that 30 or spend that 30%. So in by state law, the city is required to spend the 30% somewhere. So I think there's a discussion to be had about the merits of our provider, but that doesn't change anything having to do with the budget. And again, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Well, the budget includes that tourism promotion number. It's, again, the calculation of what the 30% of state accommodations is.
Right.
Right now, the city's designee for that is the CBB. If the city changes designees, then that amount would go somewhere else.
Right.
It doesn't prescribe that.
Right.
It's just, like you said, it is the 30% is included in the budget is what that 30% is calculated to be in the budget for next year.
However, when you go to the small print on the next page, it says that the designee, it has our designee. So it seems to me that we're obligating ourselves by doing that without compliance with, potentially without compliance with the law.
I've done a fair amount of research into this, and I would just say that I don't expect anything to change in the next 30 days concerning where that money is spent. I'm trying to move forward with things, and I don't want to table things for future meetings when there's nothing going to happen to bring out additional information to consider a vote of the yay or nay. I guess just
I agree, and we have a motion on the table.
And isn't
Wait a
this
second.
for a year as opposed to 30 days?
no, like everyone had said, there is no contract. So the budget is for a year. Who the city council decides to pay the 30% money to is entirely their prerogative. Currently, the only option on the table is CBB, and that's been going on for 20-something years. So until there's an alternative that's viable, that's been approved by the state, basically, there is no option. By law, you have to spend the money, and to my understanding, there is no other option. So until that is changed, which is what we're going to discuss towards the end of the meeting, we are where we are.
So separate the budget from the designee.
You can say this fire truck or the ATV, I'm gonna, the ATV, I'm gonna buy a Yamaha or I'm gonna buy a Honda. It's not saying, or what dealer you're buying from. It's not getting into the weeds on the details.
I
It's
take
just
your point. You're
it's a-
saying we're just approving the budget. We're not approving the
the supplier.
vendors.
Which has already been
suppliers.
approved by the city, so.
Yeah, it's just a matter, I mean, our approval is an acknowledgement that we've looked at it, we've discussed it, and you're gonna either vote in favor of it or not in favor.
So what's the motion? What's exactly what, I kind of lost track.
Motion is
I think David made the motion.
Yeah, to approve the budget.
as presented.
Is discussion complete? Okay, can I have a vote? All in favor of approving the budget?
Aye.
Aye. All against?
Nay.
Abstain.
Motion passes.
New business. First item on new business is consideration of an application from Carolina Coast Surf Club for funding in the amount of $1,000 to sponsor real-time camera image of IOP beach and surf conditions. We have a presenter.
Yes, Chair, we have Mr. Jim Radley with us today, and I think he's going to present to you all his request and be available for any questions.
Jim Radley, live at
Welcome,
3801 Hardnut Boulevard on Isle of Palms. My responsibility is SurfCam website. I'm pretty much the technical point of contact within the surf club. And read off the project name. And so let me just read through the description, and then I'll answer any questions that you have about, our metrics or anything else. And I can provide a little bit of expansion on this. So real-time camera image of beach and surf conditions displayed on the camera webpage. So there are two ways of getting to that. One is the URL, which I list here. It's also accessible through the Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester Council of Governments Beach Read smartphone app. Because one of the things that we were always concerned about in the past was how do people know about this? Anybody coming to the island, if you want to know what the tides are, you want to know what the water quality is, a variety of things that we update every day on the surf report. There was the URL, but how people know? Well, if people are looking, hopefully they are, at the Beach Reach app, they can go in Isle of Palms and see that's one of the links right there. It'll take you right to that page. There are other links too. Let's see, City of Isle of Palms would continue to have its logo prominently displayed on the sponsor. So each of these logos, if you click on the logo, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on that, it takes you to the web page, to the homepage. And so you click on the Isle of Palms one, city one, and it'll take you to that page. And one of the things that we have done for the last several years is that in the surf report, there's a section on parking and there's a section on traffic. Not to criticize the Isle of Palm City website, but it is not obvious when you go to that website how to navigate to find out what the parking rules, restrictions are, and that type of thing. The other thing that we wanted to do with traffic is that with the camera that City Isle of Palms put on one end, our end of the connector, Mount Pleasant has on the other end. Okay, so how would someone find that? We put how you navigate to that, and then the link within the City of Isle of Palms website takes you to the DOT website. So it's just, we're trying to provide a comprehensive view of what the conditions are on a daily basis on the Isle of Palms beach. So talked about traffic and beach access and parking. The other thing that we did, and hopefully we'll never have to do this again in our lifetime, and maybe never, is with all of the changes due to COVID, we put those in the surf report. And there were 4 different versions of the surf report, whether or not beach access was available, whether or not island access to the island was available, any parking restrictions, and we don't duplicate what is in the City of Isle of Palms website. What we do is say, you need to go click on this link. The city council has made a decision based on Governor McMaster's directives, and to get more details, here's what we're talking about. So we did that from March of last year right through April, September, that timeframe, updating the surf report. So anything that's significant that we need to make people aware of that affects Isle of Palms, particularly related to the beach or access, we update the surf report. I mean, it's updated every day, but we'll add that right in the first part of the surf report. We also have 2 links there at the bottom. I mean, our website, I mean, you can look at all of our financial data. It's about $400 a month for the links, the Comcast broadband internet access, for our webmaster, for Angel Cam, which provides the streaming service, a variety of things that we do. So it ends up being about $400 a month. And that's what our sponsors pay for, including the City of Isle of Palms. The 2 sponsors at the very bottom, Waterkeepers and Humans for Oceans, those are nonprofit organizations. And we put those on there as basically a community service because we want people to be aware of what water quality is and take care of the beach. Pick things up, don't leave the trash. So we don't charge them. Are there any questions?
My question, you're asking for the funds to use for webcam, web maintenance.
Yeah.
Pretty much
Right.
those
you
2
bet.
sources.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's $1,000 towards the roughly $4,800. It has varied a little bit because we have a virtual private server provided by a company called Entirety, and they didn't charge us for a period of several months because of COVID. But typically that runs anywhere from $50 to $100 a month, depending upon the amount of use. So yeah.
And who do you feel is the primary target or users of the site?
Well, we're a surf club. So, we know that surfers take a look at this. But I would hope and expect that anybody who wants to go to the beach and see how crowded is it near the pier, for example, because you can take a look and see the number of umbrellas. If you want to know what the tides are. When my grandkids were little, they liked to play in the tidal pools, and that happens at low tide. We have the tides on there specifically. You want to know, what the temperature is at that morning, but you also want to know what's the high going to be during the day. We include that. What are the winds going to be? Is it going to be windy? Do you want to go to the beach? All those kinds of information. We want to provide a comprehensive look for that day of what's going on at the beach.
I think I asked my question wrong. I own a rental property. Do you believe that people who come and are staying here in rental properties have a way to know about it and to use it?
I would hope so. I mean, I wouldn't know how else to advertise it. If you do a search, I haven't done a wide variety of Google searches. Obviously, if you're a surfer, stand-up paddleboarder, kiteboarder, if you do a search of surf clubs or surfing conditions, you'll get this. But I would hope also that people look at the Beach Reach app, because there are a variety of links to different websites, one of which is ours. And, if we could provide a better way of telling people, if you want to know what's going on a daily basis on Isle of Palms Beach, here's the website, just haven't figured out a way, the Beach Reach app is a good start. So yeah, tell your renters, use the Beach Reach app, or here's the URL, and there's a lot of information there, and you get a real-time look at through the camera of what the conditions are.
Any further questions? we have some new members on the committee, and so I just for really everyone's benefit, but specifically the new members, the accommodations tax money is really generated into two buckets, so to speak. There's a 65% bucket, which is based on tourism, and there's 30% bucket that's targeted strictly towards promotion. There's a South Carolina Department of Revenue has a ruling that's probably everybody here has seen, but it's 98.-22, and it helps people like us figure out what's an acceptable expenditure and what's not. In the explanation on the tourism related expenditures, it says tourism related expenditures include advertising and promotion of tourism so as to develop and increase tourist attendance through the generation of publicity. And I guess my feeling on this application is it complies with, that's the first item in the tourism related expenditure ruling. It complies under those terms. So I just to maybe clear up any questions about how we may vote for or against this. As far as the way I read the ruling, this application would comply under that basis. Any questions?
A motion to approve.
We're gonna have I want to say one other
Wait,
thing. You got them sit down.
else?
It's going, but it's all gonna be favorable.
You'll need to have a second.
Wait a minute,
before
we
you
need
go
a
back
second
more
to have a
discussion.
discussion.
Ms. Muley, you made a motion to approve.
I made a motion to approve.
Okay, is there a
That's second.
I'm sorry?
I second.
All right.
Discussion?
I was gonna say this because there's been so much controversy, if I can, after COVID and heightened scrutiny, that maybe on a one-time basis, I don't think we're gonna have to do it every time. But to explain for the people that might look at what we've done on the basis that we've voted, to explain why I'm voting in favor of it, and the process by which we use. We have your application, well done. Some of the things that I think all of us consider, I know I did, I considered the character of the people involved. I don't know, I think all of us know Hal Cost, Tommy, Jim. You've been here for what, 5 years since you moved over here? Before that, you were in Mount Pleasant.
December of 2008.
The surfers provide a valuable benefit to us in the off season. I don't think everybody realizes that a lot of what they do is in the fall and winter and spring. That's some of the best times. So you meet the statute. It's a very good fit for a beach community. You're nonprofit, which we confirmed. There's no pass through, that everything they do is consumed. So it's not that you're going to collect money and give it to anybody else, and you need it. We benefit tremendously. Turk has not objected to it in the past ever, and you've had prior applications going back to 2015. You provide, the thing that's most persuasive to me is that you provide environmental links, and you provide a means for people to navigate the rules for them and laws for the Isle of Palms, including parking, when to come here, and that sort of thing. I wish the oyster roast was on the Isle of Palms. That's another issue that may be coming back. I found no reasons at all why we shouldn't approve this. And again, I was especially impressed by the information and the links you provide to us or to the public that include that benefit our tourists. It also includes community. It benefits our friends in Mount Pleasant as well, but they're not the primary concern. I think even though it would be subjective and hard to describe, it helps us with our tourism, helps us with our heads on beds, even though we might not be able to precisely quantify it. Oh, I did have one, I think I already know the answer, but you're able to quantify to some degree that tourists are coming and that they're surfers about you see it visually, we see it visually, we see when they come, you can look at license plates, you can talk to people and find out. So I just want to say this one time that this is a process that we normally follow, and I know you had to do a whole lot more work this year, but we really appreciate it. Thank you for what you're doing to help us promote tourism.
Any further discussion? Okay, can we have a vote? All in favor of this application?
Aye.
All against? Passes unanimously. Okay, the next item on new business, discussion of administrative alternatives for the allocation of the 30% of the ATAX funds collected that must be used for advertisement and promotion of tourism currently managed by Charleston Area Visitors Bureau. I'll lead this discussion, and everyone else is encouraged to make comments as they see fit. This committee has been given the assignment of researching alternatives to the current 30% accommodations tax promotion allocation to Charleston Area Visitors Bureau. It's part of our purview, and it's in discussions with a number of city council members. We started just in the infancy of that research right now. We are intending to, and we are using Folly Beach as a benchmark for this research. Folly went through this process in 2005. At that point, at that time, Folly, the staff, administrative staff of Folly Beach and City Council decided that they needed, or they wanted, a more tailored approach that was focused on just Folly Beach. In that tailored approach would give them a better return on their promotion money than being included in Charleston Area Visitors Bureau their CVB's general marketing efforts. In 2005, Folly approached the State Tourism Expenditure Review Committee concerning their interest in forming their own direct marketing organization, we've been using the term DMO, and that's what that is, a direct marketing organization. After the meeting, Folly was given written confirmation. Now, I suspect there was more than one meeting, but after meeting with Turk, they were given written confirmation that an independent organization could be formed for this purpose. Therefore, the city formed the Folly Beach Tourism and Visitors Promotion Committee as a standalone tax-exempt organization. In City Council, Folly Beach City Council passed an ordinance creating the committee. The ordinance governing the board and the process for interacting with the city has remained essentially unchanged since. The Folly Beach Tourism and Visitors Promotion Committee, it's a mouthful, consists of 7 members. It's very similar to the ATAX committee, but it's a separate nonprofit independent board. They have 2 members from hospitality, 2 members from lodging, 1 member from a cultural activity, and 2 representatives from the general public. They also have the municipal clerk is a member of the committee as a staff liaison. The committee prepares a tourism promotion plan and budget each fiscal year and presents it to the city council for approval. City council approves the budget in total and does not approve or veto individual line items. City staff is not involved in the day-to-day administration of the TVPC projects. The city holds the 30% ATAX monies for the TVPC and manages the bank account. So the city is managing all of the expenditures, and it would seem as though they have control. They're not putting the money out there and losing control. The TVPC then contracts, this within their budget and within their plan, they contract with an advertising agency annually for most of their marketing work, including their website management. I suggest everyone visit the Folly Beach website if you haven't already. It's www.visitfolly.com. In the website, that website that the TVPC runs operates completely independent of city government. So like we have IOP.net, they have a very similar city website. This is totally outside of that and independent. There is no day-to-day oversight or management of the content programs or promotions that are run by the TCP on the website. There's no, there's no on the website or the actual TVCP. There's no day-to-day oversight. To give you an idea in things that you could think about concerning the website, when you do visit that website, you'll see that the information includes a stay tab, which is advertises for hotels, inns, rental properties, and rental agencies. There's an eat tab, which you would think they'd come up with something better than eat, but which advertises restaurants, grocery markets and things of that sort. There's the things to do tab, which if you can envision, it would have fishing charters, shopping ideas, surf lessons, bike rentals, beach gear rentals. They have a tab for weddings, where they promote their island as a place for destination weddings, and then they advertise the venues, the planners, and the photographers, and that kind of thing. They have a tab for festivals, and in our case, festivals would be, they Folly does some funky things with their festivals, but with our community, it could be things such as sand sculpting, holiday street festival, farmers market, all of that kind of stuff. There's an About Folly tab, which describes history of the island. And then there's a tab for beach rules, which I think is pretty key, and because there's so many rules that are changing, whether it's smoking, whether it's plastics, whether it's fireworks, whether it's fires, whether it's sand dunes, whether it's dogs, you name it. So all those things are on there. Now, secondly, I don't know, I'm still in the process of gathering information, but I'm led to believe that individual restaurants, stores, hotels, they advertise, they fund the website, they pay for advertising and their presence on the Folly Beach website. So you go to Folly Beach, visit Folly, you hit stay or whatever it stay, the whole list of options in terms of where you could conceivably stay. And I suspect, I don't know this, but I suspect those providers are paying for some of that service. So I've spoken to a number of people associated with forming this nonprofit DMO, and they've given me some thoughts on what to consider if the city wanted to consider going down this path. It was said a number of times that they felt when they were in the development stages that the focused DMO concept allowed them to be, quote unquote, masters of our own destiny. They felt that, they said things such as, everyone unanimously agrees that CVB has done an outstanding job of marketing the Charleston area. There's no question in anyone's mind, but Folly felt they needed a more focused approach, and this allowed them to dictate what that focused approach was and be a master of their own destiny. They also felt like this new committee now represents the people who were paying the taxes, and and the people who own the tourism assets, whether it be the restaurants, whether it be now restaurants don't pay accommodations tax, but hotels, rentals do. And then those hotel and rentals then generate restaurant business, which then generates revenue as well for the city. One of the suggestions I was given was whatever you do, think through the process to the end. Don't be like task oriented. Think about what your ultimate goal is and have that in mind throughout the whole process. I asked them, okay, what mistakes did you make and what would you do differently? And really, they said they would do nothing different except for the fact that we should have presented our vision for the end result of this process earlier in the process than we did. They might have been sort of insulated and they were going down a path and they didn't involve the whole community in what they were saying, and things like getting rental owners involved or hotel owners or restaurant owners, getting them enrolled in the process, getting their feedback and that kind of thing, what they meant. Next steps. Again, like I say, I've just been in the beginning of this process. I don't have all the answers at all, but I do have a meeting coming up with the Folly Beach City Administrator and their CFO. That's going to happen Friday this week. I would suggest, and I need help. So I need to get whoever else on this committee wants to be involved. I need help. I'm intending to reach out to Demita Holcomb, who is the support manager at Turk, to understand if we did want to do this, what would we have to do? What would be the process that we should follow, and get advice from her. Folly said she was extraordinarily helpful to them. And I don't know if I even mentioned it. I guess I didn't. I just talked about the website. What they do, what Folly does, this would answer maybe some questions. Folly contracts with an advertising agency. They have an advertising agency. They've connected me with the agency. I haven't made contact with them yet, but I know who they are and who the contact is. I believe they pay $30,000 a month to maintain and support and host that website. So that's a big chunk of money for within their budget. Matter of fact, comments were made that is far and away the biggest chunk of money that the promotional aspect, the 30% aspect of the accommodations tax money goes towards that ad agency. So I'm thinking I want to talk to that ad agency and learn whatever I can learn from them. Like I say, if the city wants to go down this path, that would be a good resource to talk to, consider, and they would look at us, I would think, as a prospective customer, so they would probably be very, very willing to talk. So that's where I am right now. A lot more work to be done. I would preface everything I've said with acknowledging the fact that the Charleston Area Visitors Bureau has done an outstanding job of getting us where we are today. And based on the guidance I've been given by City Council and a number of others, they suggest that they want to see if there are alternatives that are better suited for our tax money. So that's my my review. Anyone have any thoughts, questions, comments?
I would love to be on the committee with you.
Okay, well, you're welcome and you're on.
And Ray, I'd be
Yeah,
happy to work on it as well.
Okay, well, great.
And thank you for doing all the research you've been doing on this.
It's fun, actually. It's not a burden at all.
I think there's a lot more portions of the business that maybe we haven't considered yet, like group business. We're talking more on leisure travel business. Group and meeting business is huge. There's a lot of other aspects that play into this in a very big way.
Yeah, and that's part of the master of your own direction, whatever, destiny is. Let's say Isle of Palm says, they have a vision. Okay, well, maybe the vision is we want to be a convention or Folly wants weddings. Maybe we want something different, and you gear the advertising towards that.
It's more than advertising, though. It's relationships and it's.
Yeah,
Media
and that's
contacts.
where CVB has done a tremendous job.
They have.
Now, nobody throughout this whole process has ever said, we're gonna 100% move away from Charleston Area Visitors Bureau. Folly still pays them a nominal amount of money a year. I don't know specifically what it is, but I've heard numbers like $25,000 to $30,000 a year. Sullivan's gives them I've heard, again, everything I'm saying concerning that is secondhand, or maybe third hand, but they give them an even smaller number. So I would never suggest that we cut them out of the situation, but I'm looking into if there's a better idea. And there's so much money now that, back in 25 years ago, it might not have been that much money, and it was a no-brainer to make that decision. Well, now you're talking about $750,000 a year potentially. And that, how much is enough? I don't know.
Ray, have you uncovered yet some of the other things that they're using the money for? The website you mentioned, and that's $36K a year, and that's for an advertising firm. Do they also place ads? And
They did in the beginning. It's interesting, when they first started this in like 05, they didn't have, I don't think they had the ad agency. So they were putting advertisements on the LED board at Clemson and at Williams-Brice, and they were putting, they were doing Southern Living page advertisements, because they started out they didn't have the advantage of having a Folly Beach before them. It's like we can look at Folly and see what they did. They didn't have that advantage. They were going from a clean sheet of paper. So they started out doing a number of different things that they don't do today. But I don't, to answer your question, I don't know. We can find
we
out.
can ask.
Yeah, but I got the impression the vast majority of the money is spent with the ad agency, because the ad agency is managing the website, and then they also probably have other items in their budget that they have budgeted for that suit their goals.
And do you know what their overall budget per year is compared to ours?
No, I would expect it's similar. It's probably public information, Debbie, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I'm just gonna see if I can.
You probably can get it on when you look at, I've looked, but I get cross-eyed after a while looking at those spreadsheets on the computer, and I don't know, but I think it's similar.
Could this committee, or do you think that committee, and this, once again, this might be a question that has to be asked, initiate their own projects? For instance, if we decided we wanted some kind of inter-island shuttle to pick up people on the back streets and drop them off at the beach versus everybody driving their cars from Waterway up, could we use some of that, or do they use some of that to projects like that?
Well, I would go to the 9822, the 98-22 DOR ruling. They talk about those things in there, and I would look at that first to determine whether whatever idea you have on transportation would comply, because they go through some of that and they say some things do and some things don't.
So the promotion budget
Is separate.
And maybe that may or may not be considered promotion
It
to
would,
do
it
projects
would
like
be,
that.
it would have to
Okay,
come out of the 65%.
Okay,
That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The 30% is specifically for advertisement and tourism promotion.
so things like websites, perhaps participating in VRBO and Airbnb and advertising for more heads on beds, things like that.
Yeah, people have made comments like putting billboards in other states, like Ohio or something. I mean, that would comply, you come up with all these ideas and you try to figure out what would comply and what wouldn't. Putting a billboard here that says welcome to Isle of Palms doesn't comply. But putting a billboard some remote other location, that would comply. But you learn those things as you went through the process.
I like the idea of the transition and a combination so that CVB gives you the regional and the larger world advertising, and then IOP would have, if we move toward this, then we would have control of our own destiny, a little more for our own specific advertising. And then that could be evaluated what the balance is as we go forward.
Any more discussion? Questions?
This is lawyer in me. We talked about, and you and I talked about going back over to Folly. How are we just got to think about this thing and comply with FOI?
Well,
Is that,
I would,
Yes, any meeting from any,
three, we can have three.
but we can have three, right?
you should not have a quorum.
Right, but 4 is a quorum generally.
So we got to limit it to 3.
Yes, I would recommend, just so that there's clarity, maybe a representative, you as the chair could have those conversations and then bring it back to the committee.
Right.
It could muddy the water in terms of Freedom of Information Act and
Yeah,
and
no,
notifying meetings.
I'm trying to be careful with that.
And I'm more than happy to go with you with the meeting, to the meeting at Folly on Friday. From a staff's perspective, we can have some representation there as well, and then report on those to the rest of the committee afterwards.
Okay. All right.
David, I wasn't trying to cut anybody
No,
out.
I understand, that's fine.
It was the lawyer in me thinking about how to comply with the
Well,
Freedom of Information Act.
The one of the gentlemen I'm meeting with, or we're meeting with on Friday, Aaron Polk is the city administrator, but he's added Lee Gessner, I believe his name is, and he's the CFO of Folly. And from a legal point of view, a formation point of view, he would be able to answer questions about what they did. And that's why, and that's really the reason I wanted to get Doug enrolled in it, because I don't want to get into legal stuff, and they might talk the same language. I don't expect, we only have a half hour, so I got to keep it moving. And I also don't want to dwell on things that are not as important to me at that moment. Like legal stuff, I don't really care about today. I'm more looking at what worked, what didn't, what would you do different, and what problems have you had, things of that sort. Trying to find the bumps in the road before we hit them.
Just FYI, I found the Folly Beach's audited financial statements for June 30, 2020. And this surprises me, but this says their state accommodations tax revenue is $574,000
Is that the
For the
total
year.
total?
for the year.
So that wouldn't be enough for the 30%. I mean, they could be taking, they might say, well, we're going to do better than 30. We're going to do 60. I don't know.
Well, you said $30,000 a year for their,
No, a month.
a month, right, I'm sorry, a month times 12, that's
360.
360. So it's a pretty big chunk of their 574.
Yeah, and that's what they said is a big chunk, but I'm just saying that they're using more than the 30% allocation. I suppose you could do that, right?
I would think that the committee can approve a larger budget
Yeah,
towards tourism promotion. I know the state law requires you at 30%, but if you
Right.
want to do more, I'm sure the city could.
yeah. Yeah, well,
I've recently been involved in hiring a public relations firm, and their charges are significantly lower than that. Of course, they're not an advertising agency. They're different. I was really kind of surprised to hear that they pay $30K a month for advertising that primarily handles the website, but there's probably more to
well,
this
I
picture
don't.
than
yeah,
what I know.
Yeah, I don't want to say that's all they do because I don't know. So
Right.
I'll learn, we'll learn more Friday. And like I say, I'm intending to meet with that company and find out what they do. So, it, you know, it should have more detail on that as months go on.
I had just one comment. If anybody wants to weigh in, please feel free. But I just want to make sure we're gonna involve Charleston. Ultimately, we're not trying to cut them out or anything. They've been our DMO for 20 years. So they'll have an opportunity to have the same input anybody else would have.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So what you want to do is just open it up so that we can make sure that everybody's dealing from the same deck of cards.
Well, yeah, but right now I'm just fact finding. You know, I've got no judgments or anything of that sort. Man, I say this pretty much every meeting. We're an advisory committee. So all we can do is advise and let other people make decisions.
So Ray, would it be your sense, or would it be our collective sense to just stay the course, hold on while we're looking into this, or should we at this point say, hey, council, we want y'all to look into alternatives, may stay with CBB, may not, may have a combination, we might go in our own direction and let them decide, or we want to just stand pat?
Well, we have to stay the course.
Okay.
And until there's an alternative, there is no option. So, I mean, there's other options. I mean, what Folly did was create their own DMO. See, what other cities have done and gotten themselves in trouble. They've used their Chamber of Commerce as their DMO. That hasn't worked out so well. So there's other entities that could be nonprofits that can serve the same DMO purpose. But right now, at least I'm only looking at the one option that would be a city controlled committee.
So we're not going to advise, at this point in time, we're not saying, hey, council, we want to suggest respectfully advise you that we think you ought to look at alternatives. We want to gather more facts before we even suggest that.
Chair, I think it would be helpful for Mr. Truslow to know that city council has already voted to assign this research to.
I didn't know that.
Yes, so they're expecting the committee to make some potential recommendation or some research on the alternatives that are available to the city,
Okay.
and maybe potentially a recommendation for them to take on. But I think that the goal right now is to understand what alternatives there are, how would that look, how would that work, and whether or not it would be beneficial to the city to change course.
Right. Well said.
And the alternative has to be a not-for-profit.
Correct.
Yeah.
We have
That's
to go
like the
live.
first cut.
Doesn't
They
have to be
can then
established
add
for
a
period of time as
for-profit
well.
ad, they can then hire a for-profit agent.
It has to be an established organization, nonprofit.
Yeah, that does, I
organization.
believe Turk has to approve it, don't they? They have to approve the structure and the entity that you're using as a nonprofit.
I believe they would. And I would recommend, even if that's not a statutory requirement, that the city gets their blessing and before moving forward, just to ensure that it's in compliance with state law.
And how long do you think it would take to set up a city DMO? Did Folly tell you how long it took them?
Charlie McManus, who was CFO of Folly, is the fellow who's organized it. And he said, once it was full steam ahead, that they knew what they were going to do and they made the decision to go down that road, it took them 4 to 5 months. Okay, do I have any other further comments, questions, discussion?
So that would be after city council approved it or before? It has to be done before, set up before.
No, we need guidance from city council. What I want to do now is collect all the information we can collect and as a group, come up with what we then present to city council, what we think makes sense, what, based on the research we've done, what makes sense. And then we have to get guidance from city council on what they want to do. So it's going to take, I suspect it's going to take us longer than 4 to 5 months from this moment in time. But one of the reasons I wanted to put that committee meeting on the calendar for next month was because it got to move this part of it forward quickly so that we can then either we start moving forward or we stay where we are. You know, it's one of those kind of things.
So Ray, just for the taxpayers' benefit or anybody who may be listening, that we're not just sitting on our heels doing nothing. We're trying to, we have an indication from city council if they want to look at alternatives. They're not saying that they're gonna do away with their relationship with the CVB. They just want to consider responsibly all the alternatives. And we're trying to, we're sort of like doing recon or a forward observer, if you use a military term, and see what, help them understand what all the alternatives are. Is that, so we don't need to make any motion at this time that council do anything?
I don't think
We just stay the course, and either David and I can go with one or the other of us can go with you, or Desiree.
Okay, well, we can talk about that after.
Okay. All right, I understand.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Just before we go off record, everybody's okay with
Oh, yeah.
the
Oh, I'm
next
sorry.
meeting date?
I
won't be here. I'll be somewhere at a skate park somewhere in the mid-Atlantic.
What was the date again? I'm
It's
sorry.
it's scheduled for 11 a.m. August 11th.
It's a Wednesday.
I'm good.
Good. When did you get that?
Yeah, good. I'm putting it on my calendar.
We'll still have a forum.
And let Malcolm.
I will. Thank you.
This one will be a half an hour.
He's being very patient.